vote no on this. Make the Democrats pass the whole thing. Hell, Johnson's a Democrat. He's a Democrat. He holds the Bible. He's got the New Testament wrapped up tight. He can talk happy talk on a handful of social issues. Checking his son's porn site. I don't know, all this crazy nonsense. He does all that. He goes down there. He's a big, deep Christian. Except when it comes to showing courage and being courageous and maybe bringing people in so it's not a surprise.
I think that video is awesome because sometimes I think, I get that Bannon's gonna he can do literally anything he wants. He can say anything he wants to his audience. It doesn't matter. He literally conned them out of hundreds of thousands of dollars and it doesn't seem to bother them at all. But he was totally bad-mouthing Christians there. And that doesn't seem to bother them. He's a Democrat. I mean, he's got the Bible, the New Testament. Ugh. Who wants the New Testament? Who wants the Jesus-y one? Am I right? Right-wing Christians? Am I reading this wrong? Is that not a strange thing for a supposed right-wing populist to appeal to evangelicals, that he's bad-mouthing the fact that the dude likes the New Testament? Also, I don't know what about Mike Johnson is nice or polite on social issues. The dude is a total tool of the MAGA movement. He's a Democrat. I don't understand much of what he's saying except for the implicit insults towards Christianity there. But anyway, Bannon has a little bit of a preview of, I guess, some of the effects that might come from a government shutdown, which obviously he's not super worried about, but here it goes.
Now the media can sit there with a big old shotgun to your head and go, oh my gosh, no Social Security checks. It's going to be cold. It's going to be dark for Christmas Day. Granny's going to freeze. The parks are going to be closed. Smithsonian's not going to be open on Christmas Eve. Not going to get any mail. No Christmas presents going to go over. CNN's going to have that big camera everywhere. Kids crying. No Santa. NORAD's not going to be able to track. NORAD's not going to be able to track Santa on Christmas Eve. NORAD will not do it. You remember as a kid, everybody sitting there got Santa. He's leaving the North Pole. It's not going to happen because the government's going to shut down because the government's out of money.
Yeah, that sounds bad though. He's saying things that are bad, but his facial expression says two things. One, that this dude could die at literally any moment. And two, that he doesn't seem to think those are bad things, but they are. I also love, by the way, so he doesn't do a scripted show or whatever. And he also is incredibly lazy and he doesn't think ahead about what he's gonna say. And that can get you in trouble sometimes because he started to be like, oh, the government's gonna shut down. What's gonna happen? People aren't gonna get their Social Security checks. Grandma's gonna freeze in her house. And then I guess in the back of his mind, he started to realize, wait, people might have a problem with that. Something about NORAD tracking Santa, something silly, right? Forget all that stuff about grandma dying at home and your parents not having their Social Security. That's all really bad stuff, dude. Yes, that's why people don't want the government to shut down. You keep saying the bad things, but as if it's good. It's almost like Sean Hannity's lists that he always does, where he's showing the good things, but implying they're bad, but in reverse. I don't understand how that's supposed to win over his audience, but I'm assuming his podcast didn't tank in viewership yaz after that. So I guess they found a way to be okay with it. What do you make of all that?
I did think it was weird, where he started and where he ended up. He decided to act like NORAD is what average Americans are worried about every time the government shuts down, and it simply is not. And yes, it's bad that the government would do something like this in the middle of the holiday season, but we all know that they're heartless. They have their own agenda. They're going to pursue that agenda regardless of what it means for the average American. They're not actually worried about ruining the one good thing that people look forward to throughout the year, the one time of year where you're supposed to be happy and you're supposed to be allowed to be happy. They're not worried about that. But the thing is, the average American is worried about the fact that, they might not get their checks on time. They might not get things in the mail that they need, including those Social Security checks. They don't know what the status of their jobs are going to be like. And that this is during a time of mass consumerism in the United States. And it's not just about consumerism, it's about having the money and the freedom to move about the country and go visit your family, or to buy the presents that you want for your family, or to have that holiday meal that you want to have with your family. And that is only because this is happening right at this time of year. If it was happening at another time of year, it would still be a bad thing for the average American person. And this whole narrative that, people don't actually care, it's not actually going to affect people very much. It does affect people. We know it affects people. And what I don't understand is the people who are listening to Bannon's podcast, they are likely going to be amongst that affected population. So
Yeah.
why don't they understand that they do have things to legitimately be worried about if the government decides to shut down the government? But I don't know. I really don't understand that disconnect there.
Yeah, TRT Rocks in the chat says it's Bannon's weave. He's doing the weave.
bob and
you know,
weave.
you never know where you're gonna end up. I don't think he was really paying attention to himself at the beginning of that, Steve Bannon. Yeah. So look, I know that sometimes I can use absolutist language and say nothing matters. Okay, I don't actually believe that. So when he says stuff like that, yes, way too much of his audience is right over their head. That like they're the ones who are going to suffer. It's frustrating that so many Americans don't care and enthusiastically support their own economic subjugation. That really does bother. But also, let's bear in mind, the last time the Republicans were in charge, they won in 2016. What happened? Okay, they got their A's kicked in the midterms. They lost control of the Senate. They lost control of the House, and Donald Trump got booted out of the White House. That's what happened. Okay, even with Joe Biden as the candidate, who was not a particularly strong candidate. So the last time they were in charge, people did wise up and they saw, oh wait, this actually sucks. This is a terrible way for a government to be run or not to be run, and I don't actually want this. So that is why I can say simultaneously, I get super frustrated when people still don't see Elon Musk for who he is. They don't get that Steve Bannon doesn't give a damn about them and their family. But that's a small portion, okay? More people do get it, which is why I simultaneously am very frustrated on a day-to-day basis by the news that I see, and I believe they are about to be absolutely destroyed in the upcoming midterms and in the presidential race, which is why I think it's so important that we have the right candidate for that. Those two things can happen at the same time, and I might focus on one in my commentary. It doesn't mean that the other goes away.